Levon Cade starts his day sleeping in a pickup truck, rising with the sun as he rubs his eyes and checks the time on his watch. He is a quiet, strong man in his 40s with a short buzz cut and a lean frame that hints at years of tough training. He puts on his work boots and steps out into the morning chill. Nearby is a large construction site, owned by a kind family named the Garcias. Levon makes his way through scattered equipment and half-finished structures, nodding hello to the workers who are already setting up. It is clear he has earned their respect. When he walks into the main trailer that serves as the office, he greets Joe Garcia, the site's main boss, and Carla Garcia, Joe's warm, caring wife. On the desk are building plans and logs for hours worked. Leaning on the far wall is Jenny Garcia, their teenage daughter, scrolling on her phone as she waits for her parents to finish a conversation. Jenny hands Levon a few invoices for building materials, then flashes a wide smile, telling him she hopes her father will agree to pay for an upcoming semester at a local college. Joe seems unsure, but eventually gives in, reminding Jenny to be careful about her spending. She thanks him by hugging him tight, and the affection in that office feels genuine. Levon smiles at their sweet family dynamic, though he holds himself at a distance, as if carrying his own burdens. Soon, Levon checks his clipboard and steps back outside. The morning sun glares off piles of concrete and rebar. Workers hustle around in neon vests, some mixing cement, others hauling lumber. Levon calls for a quick huddle, telling them about the day's goals, completing certain beams, making sure safety harnesses are used properly, and keeping an eye on a large generator that has been acting up. Right then, he notices 3 shady men in dark clothes approaching one of his younger crew members, an immigrant worker who looks nervous. The men start yelling at the worker, demanding money he apparently owes them. Levon calmly walks over and tells them to back off. The thugs refuse. They mock Levon, asking if he wants to fight, but he only responds by saying they should leave this site, as it is private property. One thug shoves the worker, causing him to stumble and drop a bucket of nails. Levon exhales, picks up the bucket, and suddenly flings it at them, sending nails scattering across their feet. Caught off guard, they slip, giving Levon the moment he needs. He punches one in the gut, sending him spinning into a cement mixer. Another tries to swing a crowbar, but Levon ducks and counters with a sharp elbow. The third, seeing his friends down, rushes forward. Levon blocks a jab, steps in, and lands a firm blow to the back of his shoulder. The man collapses with a groan. A few more men, hearing the commotion, rush onto the site. They look like they belong to the same group. Without breaking a sweat, Levon warns them to stay back. One tries to test him, so Levon swiftly deflects the attack, tossing him onto a wooden pallet that collapses beneath his weight. After this impressive show of force, the rest decide it is not worth it, and they retreat, dragging their injured buddies away. Panting only a little, Levon checks on his coworker, telling him to get some water and return to his tasks. The entire thing took maybe a minute. Jenny watches wide-eyed from the side, astonished at Levon's speed and skill. He seems embarrassed by the attention, as if he wants to hide that part of himself. Jenny approaches carefully. She asks him in a low voice if he learned those moves in the military. Levon avoids the question, telling her it was just reflex, and warns her not to mention it to anyone. Jenny smirks, as though storing this new information for future reference. She gives him a small bag of food and thanks him. He simply nods, then signals for the workers to get back on schedule. Later that day, Levon drives to a quiet residential street, parking in front of a well-kept suburban house. He knocks and is met by Dr. Roth, his father-in-law, a gray-haired man with stern eyes and a deep frown. Levon politely asks if he can see his daughter Mary, a bright 10-year-old. Dr. Roth glares at him, reminding him that he only has 2 hours of visitation a week. Without saying anything more, Dr. Roth calls for Mary. She dashes to the door, a big grin on her face, squealing "Dad!" and leaping into Levon's arms. For a moment, Levon's tough exterior melts, and he hugs her tightly, whispering that he missed her. Dr. Roth stands aside, arms crossed, as Levon and Mary head toward the pickup truck. Roth's resentment is palpable. He believes Levon is somehow responsible for his daughter's death, which was officially ruled a suicide while Levon was away on a military tour. Roth has the money and influence to maintain custody of Mary, a fact that weighs heavily on Levon. Levon takes Mary to a local diner, where they share a simple meal. She tells him about her week, school projects, new friends, and her frustration living with Grandpa Roth, who is always grumpy. Levon listens attentively, offering encouraging words, though he occasionally glances away with a troubled look. After they eat, he reaches into his jacket pocket and hands Mary a small framed photo of her mother. Mary's expression goes somber. She asks why her mother left them. Levon gently says she did not leave by choice, that she was hurting, but Mary is not satisfied. She tears up, feeling a complicated mix of love and anger. Levon holds her hand, trying to be honest but protective. Once their short visitation is up, he drives back to Dr. Roth's house, returning a sad Mary to the doorstep. With a hollow wave, Levon heads off. That evening, Levon meets with his lawyer in a cramped office. Stacks of paperwork line the desk, and the lawyer looks tired. The lawyer updates him on the custody case. Dr. Ross' legal team is well funded, making the process difficult. If Levon cannot provide stable housing or show some normal routine, the court may limit his visits further. With a resigned sigh, Levon hands over more of his savings to keep the case going. He vows not to give up. The lawyer pats his shoulder and says they'll try their best. Meanwhile, across town, Jenny Garcia dresses in a stylish top and jeans, heading out with some friends to a popular club. Bright neon lights flash, loud music thumps, and a bar crowd sways on the dance floor. A pair of watchful eyes in a dim corner belong to Viper, a wiry man with slicked back hair, and Artemis, a cool, intimidating woman. They keep an eye on various young women. Jenny and her friends laugh as they sip drinks, though one friend becomes nauseated and stumbles away to the restroom. In that vulnerable moment, Jenny is alone. Viper approaches, faking concern, while Artemis lurks behind her. Before Jenny can react, Artemis clamps a glue trap over her mouth, muffling her screams. Viper grabs her waist, and they drag her out a back door into a waiting van. The abduction happens so quickly that nobody notices. Jenny's phone is left behind, glowing with unanswered messages. On Monday morning, Levon arrives at the Garcia construction site to find Joe and Carla Garcia in tears, talking to two police officers. The cops look bored, scribbling notes but not promising much. Joe and Carla approach Levon, their faces etched with panic. They reveal Jenny never returned after going out Friday night, and the police seem too busy to focus on the case. They know Levon has a military background and beg for his help, even offering him money. Levon hesitates, insisting that the old life is behind him. Joe pleads, saying Jenny is like Levon's own niece, and he knows Levon's special set of skills could save her. Levon remains reluctant. The memory of violence in his past is something he tries to bury. He walks away, ignoring the way Carla sobs into Joe's shoulder. That night, unable to sleep, Levon drives to a small house on the outskirts of town where his friend, Gunny Lefferty, lives. Gunny is a middle-aged blind veteran who lost his sight in an explosion during a mission Levon led. Despite the tragedy, Gunny holds no resentment, only gratitude that Levon saved his life. Gunny's wife welcomes Levon inside for coffee. The walls display framed medals and photos from their time in the service. Levon explains Jenny's disappearance, his own confusion about whether to help, and how Joe and Carla are desperate. Gunny, calmly stroking a guide cane, reminds Levon that refusing to help would weigh heavily on his conscience. The Garcia family is good, honest, and they treat Levon as one of their own. Gunny urges him to do the right thing. After a pause, Levon lowers his head, whispering he'll do it. The next morning, Levon returns to the Garcia house. Joe and Carla, red-eyed from crying, appear as soon as he knocks. Levon says simply, "I'll bring her home." Carla breaks down in relief, hugging him. Joe tries to give Levon money, but Levon shakes his head, indicating the reward is not his motive. He cares about Jenny in his own quiet way. Levon starts by visiting the club where Jenny was last seen. Bright posters adorn the walls, and bartenders mix flashy drinks. Levon questions the staff, but they are tight-lipped. One bartender with a slick ponytail named Johnny looks nervous. Levon trails him after work, breaking into the man's cramped apartment. The walls are adorned with band posters, and a stray cat meows near the window. Johnny tries to run, but Levon catches him and forces him into the bathtub, holding a wet rag over his face in a makeshift waterboarding tactic. Johnny sputters, nearly drowning. Just as Johnny confesses bits about a trafficking group that snatches girls for rich clients, two of Johnny's friends barge in, hearing the commotion. Armed with cheap pistols, they open fire, grazing the apartment walls. Levon dives behind a couch, pulling the soaked Johnny with him. He wrestles a gun away from one thug, shooting them both in the flurry. Panting, Levon turns back to find Johnny half-conscious. He tries to glean more information, but the man only coughs up a name, Dimi, the Bratva. Then he dies from his injuries. Later, a high-ranking Bratva captain named Wolo Kolisnyk arrives at the bloody scene with a few associates. He sees the three corpses and curses in Russian, deducing that someone is targeting their operation. Wolo calls his brother, Symon Kharchenko, a powerful figure to warn him. Symon is furious, insisting they find the intruder fast. Meanwhile, Levon lurks in the shadows across the street, eavesdropping on Wolo's call before slipping away. Levon follows Wolo home that night. The wealthy gangster lives in a gated property with a well-manicured lawn and a glistening swimming pool. Peering through a window, Levon sees Wolo slap his wife in anger, apparently furious about something. Levon decides to act. He sneaks in when the wife leaves the room, knocking Wolo out with a blow to the back of the head. Wolo wakes up tied to a chair that dangles over the pool from a rope. Levon stands on the pool's edge, gripping the rope. He threatens to drop Wolo in if he makes too much noise. Wolo, trembling, hisses a string of curses and spits out cryptic references to Dimi and how they're all at fault for messing with the wrong man. Levon presses for details about a kidnapped girl, but Wolo refuses to yield. With a grim look, Levon releases the rope. Wolo splashes down, still tied to the chair, thrashes for a moment, then goes still, swallowed by the water. Levon steps back quietly. Later, Symon arrives at Wolo's home to find the body fished out by paramedics. Enraged, Symon vows revenge. He calls his sons Danya and Vanko, instructing them to handle the assassin who is picking off their men. Meanwhile, in a hidden room, Jenny is bruised and terrified. Viper and Artemis hover over her, discussing what to do. They have a wealthy client named Mr. Broward who wants a girl for his twisted desires. Jenny pretends to be unconscious, but when Broward leans in to do something vile, she bites a chunk of his cheek, sending him screaming in pain. Furious, Broward shouts at Viper and Artemis that the deal might be off unless they keep her sedated. However, later he changes his mind, deciding he still wants her, but demands she remain awake for him. Levon goes to meet his old contact Dutch, who is known in the underworld for dealing weapons and drugs. Dutch is a big, muscular man with a booming laugh. He first tests Levon by having 4 goons approach him. Levon, unstoppable, thrashes them with minimal effort, placing one man's arm in a painful lock while dodging 2 others. Seeing Levon's skill, Dutch nods in respect. They chat about a possible deal, though Levon's real objective is to find the location of certain traffickers. Dutch senses Levon's ex-military vibe, giving him a pass. He says if Levon wants to do business, he should link up with a shady pair named Artemis and Dougie. They can connect him to bigger players. Artemis and Viper, meanwhile, deliver Jenny to a slimy warehouse. Broward is there, furious about his torn cheek but still fixated on her. He scolds them for letting her fight back, then orders them to drug her more thoroughly. Jenny tries to fight again, but Viper slams her to the floor. By now, Levon has gained enough clues to suspect that a man named Dimi orchestrates these kidnappings. Following Dutch's tip, Levon heads to a rundown biker bar at the edge of the city. Smoke drifts from inside and rock music thunders through the walls. Artemis watches the security camera feed. She warns Dougie about Levon, telling him to handle the stranger. Levon enters, scanning the row of bikes out front. Sensing trouble, he snags one of the bikes and revs away, forcing a group of men to chase him into the woods. The chase ends abruptly when a police cruiser blocks Levon's path. He skids, flipping over the handlebars. The cops, Sergeant Von Trask and Deputy Detweiler, step out. However, they are on the criminal's payroll. They greet Danya and Vanko as they arrive, handing Levon over to them. A wad of cash changes hands and the crooked cops leave. In the van, Danya and Vanko tie Levon up, planning to torture him. Inside that cramped space, Levon fakes unconsciousness, then springs to life. He slams Danya's head into the side, grabs a loose gun, and fires wildly in the swirling chaos. The driver gets shot in the skull, the van swerves. Danya and Vanko scramble to wrestle the gun away, but Levon is unstoppable. He kills them both, leaps out, and shoves the driver's corpse aside as the van plunges into a nearby river. Standing on the bank, Levon takes a moment to catch his breath, glancing at the bodies. He knows Symon will not forgive this. Symon, upon hearing about the death of his nephews Danya and Vanko, is incensed. He visits the morgue, sees their covered forms on slabs, and curses Levon's name. He contacts the rest of his network, ordering them to find out who Levon really is and to punish him severely. Symon's men manage to identify Levon as a veteran, tracking down Dr. Roth's home. Roth is supposed to pick Mary up from school, but he never arrives. Levon's protective instincts flare when the school calls, saying nobody came for Mary. He rushes over, seeing Mary standing anxiously on the steps. He puts her in his truck, racing to Roth's house. Fire trucks and flashing lights reflect off the block's windows. Flames shoot from the front windows as neighbors gather in horror. Levon leaps out, telling Mary to wait with a neighbor as he dashes into the blazing home. Inside, smoke billows. He finds Roth unconscious on the floor. Coughing and tearing up from the heat, Levon hoists the older man onto his shoulder and manages to get out just before part of the roof collapses. Outside, paramedics treat Roth, who angrily blames Levon for bringing violence into their lives, but Mary snaps back that her dad just saved him. Levon decides that Mary is not safe here. He calls Gunny, who agrees to watch her for a while. At a motel on the outskirts of town, Artemis and Viper get orders from Dimi to kill Jenny, claiming her assault on Broward cost them a fortune. They load Jenny into a car, planning to drive her to a remote spot to end her life. Jenny, bruised but not broken, waits for a chance. As they speed down a back road, she forcibly yanks the steering wheel, sending them crashing into a tree. Artemis and Viper are dazed, but they quickly regroup. Jenny slashes at them with a piece of broken metal, then escapes the wreckage and sprints through the woods. Her heart pounding, she reaches a road and flags down a cop car. To her dismay, it is Sergeant Von Trask and Deputy Detweiler again, the same dirty cops. Realizing her mistake too late, she's taken back into captivity. Symon meets with Dimi at a seedy nightclub. Symon's henchman Carp enjoys firing a gun into the club's ceiling to scare patrons, an act that annoys Dimi, who tries to calm Symon. Symon reveals Levon's identity to Dimi, that he's the one wiping out their men. Symon storms out, leaving Dimi furious. Moments later, Levon shows up like a specter of vengeance. He sneaks behind Dimi, holding a gun to his side and forcing him to stand down. In a swift move, Levon shoots Dimi through the hand, rendering him unable to wield a weapon. Before Dimi can scream, Levon demands to know Jenny's exact location. Trembling, Dimi confesses she is at a hidden compound. Levon forces Dimi into his car. Outside, Dimi tries to rationalize his part in the operation, insisting that if he did not handle the trafficking, someone else would. Levon silently leads him to a small creek. As Dimi begs for mercy, Levon kicks him into the shallow water and fires, killing him. Using the directions Dimi provided, Levon drives to a remote compound ringed by a tall fence and patrolled by armed guards. The sound of laughter and drunken shouting carries through the night air. This is the final place. Inside, Breward arrives, expecting to have his way with Jenny again. She is bound in a dingy room, battered but still spirited. Artemis and Viper step in, giving Broward a sick smile. Then the ground shakes with an explosion outside. Levon has tossed a grenade near the fence to create a distraction. Alarms ring, guards scramble, and Levon storms through with guns and small explosives. Bullets rip through wooden walls. He eliminates half a dozen men in moments. The rest rush to defend the compound, while in another section, a pack of bikers led by Dutch arrives, having learned of Levon's location. They want revenge. In a grim courtyard lit by flickering floodlights, Levon faces Dutch. The big man wields a machete, and they engage in a brutal knife duel. Dutch roars, swinging wide arcs that slice the air. Levon stays nimble, stepping in to land well-placed cuts. Each slash draws sparks off their blades. Finally, Levon disarms Dutch, driving his own blade into the man's chest. With respect for a fallen soldier, he gently sets Dutch down, acknowledging a worthy foe. Inside the building, Jenny hears gunfire. She begs to be freed from the chain around her ankle. Viper and Artemis drag Broward in, telling him she's all his now. Broward gloats, ignoring her pleas. Suddenly, an explosion blasts the door open. Levon charges in, shotgun raised. He sees Broward and shoots him dead in one thunderous shot. Artemis screams, grabbing Jenny, who reacts by twisting around and locking her legs around Artemis's neck. The two tumble to the floor. Viper lunges at Levon with a switchblade, but Levon wrestles the blade away and crushes Viper's windpipe with a savage elbow strike. Artemis struggles as Jenny squeezes tighter, snapping her neck. Jenny stumbles to her feet, tears mixing with sweat. Levon slams the door open, telling her to follow. Outside, Karp and a few more goons arrive. Von Trask and Detweiler also show up in their cruiser, though Karp mistakes them for legitimate cops. He riddles them with bullets, killing them, and then fires a grenade launcher, blowing up the cruiser. Levon and Jenny slip through the chaos, jumping on a free motorcycle. As Karp tries to aim, Levon tosses a small explosive behind him, engulfing Karp in flames. They ride off into the darkness, the moon overhead shining on the long road. On a distant ridge, Symon stands with a phone to his ear. His brother Yuri is on the line, telling him that the high ranks of the organization see no profit in going after Levon. The devil got what he came for, so leave him alone. Furious, Symon snarls that he will avenge his family alone. When the sky turns gray with dawn, Levon and Jenny arrive at the Garcia home. Joe and Carla see them from the window, sprinting outside with tearful joy. Jenny collapses into her parents' arms. They hold her, crying tears of relief. Carla hugs Levon, whispering thanks over and over. Joe, voice shaky, tells him they owe him more than they can ever repay. Levon simply nods, exhaustion in his eyes, then quietly slips away. He drives to Gunny's house, a modest one-story with a small garden. Inside, Gunny and his wife greet him warmly. In the living room sits Mary, curled on the couch with a coloring book. She looks up with big eyes, then leaps up to throw her arms around her father. Gunny says, "Welcome back, brother. You're home." Levon closes his eyes, relief washing over him. They move to the kitchen table, where the morning light streams in through simple curtains. Gunny's wife sets out plates of scrambled eggs and toast. Levon, Mary, and the Leffertys bow their heads for a moment of gratitude. Laughter breaks the tension as Mary chatters about her day at school. For the first time in a while, Levon allows himself to breathe easy, hoping that maybe, just maybe, life can return to something close to normal. From a distance, Symon stands by a black sedan, phone in hand, swearing vengeance. He barks into the phone that nobody in the Brotherhood will help him, but he does not care. He will do it alone. The film closes on the image of Levon smiling at Mary, who passes him a plate of warm toast. The father in him has won out over the soldier, at least for today. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the story of a working man, where Jason Statham's Levon Cade bravely reclaims a missing teenager from dangerous criminals, all while fighting for a life with his own daughter. If you enjoyed this recap, remember to stick around and watch more videos on the channel. Cut to the chase. We appreciate your time and look forward to bringing you more exciting movie recaps soon.